Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We're going to get started with the work session. Jim, right now you are our lone board member. Kristen is on her way, and others have been tied up. So you will be our audience for the time being, along with a couple of in-house folks. So with that, I think we're just going to get rolling right into it. I'm going to have Cody get started with operations and F&B. So, Cody.
Good afternoon, Jim. Let's say members of the board, but it sounds like I got one. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, afternoon.
I'll give some updates here on the operational side of things.
Do they need to load your? Oh, it's up there. It is.
On the operational side, I'll give some brief updates here. I'll kind of start with the events section. The Q4 highlights from last quarter, which ended in November. The total events that we had in Q4 was about 72 total events. And that, again, the list that I have up here is anything above 250. And that number is about 10 total that we had. What's missing from this list that we did have cancel, obviously Festival of Trees in ITC, which was about 800 people, are not on this list. And they were originally from the forecast at the beginning of the year. They did not come to fruition as we got towards the end. But still a very strong fourth quarter. In particular, there's 10 events there listed that are all 250 and above, which leads me to my next slide. I'm not sure why those shifted on me because it's not showed up on mine. Okay. Sorry about the text there at the bottom. I'm not sure what happened there. The total events in Q1 is 78. While it's not a huge uptick from Q4 because the number is only just about 6 more, it's the number of large events that I really wanted to highlight to the board. This is everything that's over 250 as well, and there are 20 events. So that's double in the number of events that are over 250 for quarter 1, 2022. So a significant increase. It's been a big reason that we really put a price on our staffing levels and making sure that we've done everything we can from a retention as well as to try to recruit. So that leads me to my next slide. But I would highlight that Q2 is something I'm excited next quarter to talk to you guys about because it's even busier than this with larger events, several in the 900, 800, 1,000 in Q2. So it gets even busier. And with that comes our staffing. So I've got our highlights here from our staffing side. I really want to take a minute to recognize Stacy Funk, our director of HR, and Megan Maloof, our HR specialist. As you can see, the number there in the middle from December of 2020, we were at 85 total employees. And as of today, we are at 165. That's 67 full-time and 98 part-time. Obviously, we maintained a large portion of our full-time staff. We had some furloughs and some people go into other and they came back. So that number fluctuated a little bit, but it wasn't a big change overall. The big change to that number is that part-time staff. So the efforts of Stacy and Megan have not gone unnoticed. I really highlight that I believe that this is due to some of our culture as well as becoming an employer of choice is something I know Pat says a lot. And I think that the team here, that the HR team has really put that as a priority for us and it's starting to pay off. On the far right there of the screen, I've got numbers of different departments, and these are really our key service staff. All of our staff is key, so I say that tongue in cheek a little bit. The wait staff side, though, has been one of our biggest departments historically, and it is again. So we're excited to see that number up to 50 total. Operations, we are up to 20 total. Kitchen, we are up to 20 as well. That's close to fully staffed, and I'll get into that when I get into my food and beverage updates. AV at 14, bar at 13, and again, custodial, something that we're trying to get more backfill on that. We're at 4, and facilities is at 3. So we're feeling very strong with where we're at on the service levels that we can accomplish. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. And so staffing continues to be a struggle, but I would say comparatively to others in the Valley, I think we've done an yeoman's task and really strengthened our service abilities. The quality of service is maintained as well as the ability to do larger events. And on my next slide, I'll get into it a little more. We're doing about 900 plus right now with the service staff levels that we do have. We feel comfortable with that number. Again, that depends if it's coming from a breakfast, lunch, and dinner to back into another breakfast. Some of that can pinch that staff on that number of 900. Any questions so far, Jim?
Yeah, Cody, in our biggest year, our busiest year, how does that 165 number compare to the number we've had in our busiest years?
Is about 75% of our total staff at the peak before COVID, if that's your question. So we were a little about 220, 210, somewhere in that range pre-COVID. So that number is about 75% of where we were.
Okay, thanks.
And Jim, we'll need to get to that level by February if we're going to survive 2022. We need that many people.
Yep, very much so. And both of these next two slides kind of highlight that. From the operations level, I really wanted to highlight Nick Shoba's efforts, the Director of Operations, as well as our Operations Manager. The staff as a whole, the full-time staff there really carried the pail for a lot of different, wore many hats throughout the entire time during COVID. That top bullet point makes me very happy to see because Nick and his team have done a great job of getting their departments fully staffed. So operations and maintenance are fully staffed as of today. They will need more part-time staff for operations to be hired prior to March in preparation for our very busy Q2. As I was saying, Kristen, to Jim, the Q1 is very, very busy. We've had, the last time I reported to you guys, in Q4, we had about 10 events of 250 plus. Going into Q1, we're looking at double that, about 20 of 250 plus. And that number continues to increase for Q2. So I'm excited to report to you guys next quarter on what that looks like, because Q2 is a super strong quarter if everything maintains. Large events of 800, 900, 1,000 plus all over the board. So again, that staffing by March is something that we're kind of right now focusing on, and we're looking at everything across the board from doing an internal job fair to try to help us on that piece to continue to drive that number closer to that 210, 220 we were for prior COVID. 5 new supervisors from operations have been hired and fully trained in 21. And I really speak to this is because an operations supervisor, I've always said, takes about a year to become fully trained because they get to know the annual events in the building, the cadence, but we have done a great job of training the staff that we do have. I am feeling very positive of the operations supervisor staff we had. I know we did a leadership training just recently internally, and hearing from their feedback, the way that they presented themselves, we are in good hands in the future from the operations leadership side. They've done a great job. We have maintained, we brought back one seasoned part-time supervisor. He's actually working at an event today as a client, and that's Alex Neerman from the chamber. So our culture has retained employees that have just picked us up as a part-time job, and they have another full-time job, and they're just doing it because they enjoy working here so much. So I just wanted to highlight that. Have budgeted to add an assistant operations manager in Q2 of 22. Again, if we're looking at that Q2 is going to be a high demand for the staff. So at that point, we're trying to get back to where we were pre-COVID for our staffing levels. 2021 operational capital highlights. We complete.
Can I ask you a embarrassing question, which shows how little I understand what all this is? What exactly is an operations supervisor?
It is the supervisor that manages the setup and tear down crew and the people that maintain the event while it's going on from the operations side. Okay. So the operations supervisor is really in charge of life safety, making sure that if there was an emergency in the building, they're really that first key contact for crowd management, making sure everybody's exited appropriately. And then they do supervise the staff that sets up, tears down, and maintains the building for events. Again, from the capital side on the highlights, we completed 110, 120 refresh of the walls and paint. New air walls in meeting room 120 were completed. We had new powered exit signs in Boise Center West. And for those that probably don't know what that means, we had the old style exit signs, which we weren't powered. They have kind of they're toxic because they have a nuclear stuff is how they turn green. So we've aged those out, and we found out getting rid of exit signs that are old that have some biohazard in them, not cheap to do either. So that was one of our capital projects, just getting rid of those was a whole process as well. And then we installed automatic flush valves throughout the entire facility. Questions on the operations side? Okay, on to food and beverage. Again, this is another bullet point that I'm happy to see. We're close to fully staffed, and I say that with a little caveat. On the food and beverage side, obviously we need some more stewards. That's one of our pinch points. We could use about 3 new banquet cooks, and a sous chef is what we're currently posting for before Q2. But right now, that is the staff that we have is able to service 900 plus, and that's wait staff in culinary. We're going to need to hire more service staff prior to Q2 to meet the event demand. So that's where we're putting a lot of our efforts in to Q1 is to focus on enhancing our staff. We had another flawless annual health department inspection in 21. We did have a recommendation from them, and I have to pull up my notes here on HACCP to find out what that was. I had to do a little bit of research last night, but this is a goal of the team is to become certified in hazard analysis and critical control points. And it's a management system in which food safety is addressed through the analysis and control of biological, chemical, and physical hazards from raw material production, procurement, handling to manufacturing, distribution, and consumption of the finished product. So similar from the GBAC side of things for the food safety handling side. So this was a recommendation from the health department that they've seen facilities at our size reach out and get that certification. So we're going to set that as a goal for 22. And it's just through some training courses, and you get awarded the certificate. You have to demonstrate to prospective employers that you can identify the causes of foodborne illnesses, follow the requirements of food safety programs, implement monitoring procedures, and determine effective corrective actions is how you get certified there. So we're looking forward to doing that in 22. All of our licenses, from liquor licenses to the city's licenses, have been renewed for 22. The one that wasn't renewed, and it's actually because it still is good, normally would have expired in January, was the Boise City beverage license, and it was extended until spring of 22. And that was a city council initiative that they did for the restaurants to help them be able to not have to pay as much for this next upcoming year. So I think there's going to be a prorated amount for that last 6 months, and it's there to help a lot of the restaurants, and we will benefit from that. Strong F&B revenues for Q4 of 21. I know this last in particular quarter, we outperformed budget, and that's something that I was very happy to see in the food and beverage side. We've been so strong a revenue generator on that department that this last year has been a kind of a ramp back up into normalcy. And towards that Q4, I'm starting to see similar revenues as what I saw pre-COVID from some of our events. Obviously, the limitations on group sizes is what's keeping us from being able to go full, open up full on that side. And we continue to manage to the increases in food costs and labor. What we did there is we've increased our service charge rates, the menu pricing, all of the labor that we've increased to pay our staff has been built into the 2021 pricing or 2022 pricing. Some of that won't come to fruition based on how contracts do work. So our contracted rates for service charges and certain services are locked in per the contract. So we start seeing a lot of those benefits in the Q2, Q3, and Q4.
But not the menu price, right?
Yep, menu price is not contracted rate, so
And
that's
you're
it.
Looking at that,
It's right, and it's effective as of December 1. We updated our menu pricing with all of the challenges that we're facing on that side. So
and how often do you think you'll be updating and looking at that?
probably quarterly is what we're going to evaluate, but I'm not trying to change too much on our clients too fast. So biannually is my kind of goal, but if things do change drastically, we want to pull back because we don't want to overcharge for stuff. Beef is still continues, certain cuts of beef continue to be a challenge for us, so. On to capital of 2022, just some highlights there. We have the air wall replacement in meeting room 110, and that will complete the renovation of 110, 120. We did the paint, the wall coverings, and the air wall in 120. So this is the last piece of that project that we kind of separated out and tried to do the best we could to reduce our capital budgets over the last 2 years because of COVID. HVAC replacements, we've got a 30-year-old building and some of our units are needing replaced. Installing GPS, and that's not what you think on that. It's a Global Plasma Solutions in all of our air handlers. And I had to print up something of what GPS is as well. It's a Global Plasma Solutions will improve the indoor air quality throughout the facility. The product will purify the air by eliminating airborne particles, odors, and pathogens. The combined effect is a lowered carbon footprint and up to 30% energy savings through a reduced outdoor air intake. Particles are reduced, pathogens are killed, odors are neutralized, energy is saved. So it's going to have an ROI based on using these new filters in our system and our HVAC.
And
So,
stuff like that, is that something that you publish or promote to a client?
yes, absolutely. Yep. And then jumping ahead here too far. Warehouse shelving, just as we get into older shelving in the warehouse, we're going to be replacing some of that for safety reasons, but also for some additional storage. Boiler project at Boise Center West is aging out because it's a 32-year-old facility. New phone system. We're looking at more of a VoIP. We have a VoIP phone system, but ours is kind of dated as far as the technology and the abilities it has. Now that we have remote employees working, it's really going to open up the ability for us to use all of the technology that's out there today in our own phone system. There's a limitation on our current phone system that if I can twin my cell phone to my desk phone, but I can't see who's calling me other than it's my desk phone. So some of the features that come through in the new VoIP system will allow us to kind of be able to track who was. I could call somebody back on their number and not instead of having to find out who called me, it's my number that came through. So some features there. And then it comes with some additional benefits similar to Teams and stuff that we can bring into one umbrella versus using 3 or 4 different softwares. New POS system terminals, food and beverage equipment, electrical upgrades, gas lines in Boise Center East. We've discovered that some of our ovens over there are being starved with gas, so they do a backfire. They kind of make a loud pop, and it's because of the lines to Boise Center East are restricted to the point where it just can't feed that much of equipment. So we have to expand our gas lines in Boise Center East. We've got some very nice equipment over there, and it continues to draw on that gas line, and they're all kind of starving each other is what's happening. Sound system upgrades, and then 5-year escalator deep cleaning in the east and west. This is one that we've got on there to look at in Q3 and Q4 if it doesn't need to be done. The last 2 years of the building haven't been used the same way it normally would have been. So we may be able to extend that. The fear I have of pushing any of these things off, sort of how we did the air wall, our calendar is filling up very quickly, and taking escalators offline limits our ability to get our guests to and from. So waiting on these things, it's really important to find the windows to jump in there when then we've got a gap in the bookings to make it happen. So something I'd like to get done this year with a total budget we presented to the board back in October was 1.6 million. I think we can outperform that, but this is the big dollar items that we have coming up.
I thought what did we do just to the escalators recently?
over in West, when we had to do repairs,
Uh-huh.
because they had, pardon me, the screw holes when they were installing and they were putting screws in. They actually missed something, missed where they were supposed to put them in, so we're having leaks. And so we took the escalators down and had them repaired. They came in, fixed all the holes, put new bracketing in, and got everything cleaned up. So this is annual maintenance,
Okay.
recommended annual maintenance, or 5-year annual maintenance.
It will
So
extend the life of the asset. What that was that Pat was talking about is they actually penetrated the drip pans. So what happened is the oil had been finding the path of least resistance and running down, and it was coming out and dripping on our floor. So we had to get some repairs done to that. So that was our
Was that
last year.
covered by warranty?
Some was and some wasn't. ESI took care of us pretty well for the most part. But there was a lot of finger pointing between the contractor and the escalator company and what was approved during the original scope of work. So
it cost us some, but it wasn't
nearly,
significant.
it was just downtime on our escalator was our hardest pinch point. But as far as cost, it wasn't much to the center. Just looking ahead again to 22, on the IT side, me and Tony have been working closely together on a new IT security policy that'll be finalized by the end of the month. And that's really just a document. We have a lot of the stuff that we were doing. Per the auditor's request, he said, you guys are doing a lot right, but make sure you document all of your processes. And a lot of these bullet points here came from that recommendation. So we're working on a change management documentation and policies, a full disaster recovery and business continuity plan to be completed in 22. That draft has already begun. And our goal is by Q3 to really have that wrapped up and then be able to present that to the board by the end of 22. We are going to renew our GBAC accreditation for 2022 as well, which is going to cause us to review and update policies and procedures. Things have changed since the last time we got our certification. Touch points used to be a really big issue. Now with COVID, those aren't as much. So GBAC has changed their policies and procedures a little bit on the requirements. We're going to continue to do everything that we can to make our guests feel safe. This is a piece that I think I spoke to this the last quarter about. We're not seeing business come here because of GBAC, but it is giving those that have booked additional arrow in their quiver to say to their vendors or to their guests that are attending, hey, it's a GBAC certified facility. And that is from our client side, they're letting us know that's giving them additional layers to make their guests feel safe. We did a SWOT analysis and strategic planning with the leadership team. And I think it's really important just to kind of highlight some of the things. There was nothing here that was a glaring takeaway that we hadn't paid attention to. I was very proud of the team's awareness to, and this comes from all positions at all levels, to some of our strengths, to some of our weaknesses, some of our opportunities and threats. I'll just highlight some of them that in particular that are, I think that nothing that would be shocking to anybody. Supply chain is one of them. The storage that we have in our building, the size of our building and the lack of space that we have, the buzz that's around Boise and the emerging destination is an opportunity, but it also can be a weakness because of the limited space that we have. So the team really highlighted a lot. That message to the board would be, I think that we're seeing Boise does have an opportunity to continue to grow its convention market. I don't know what that looks like, but we are running out of space. So a challenge to the board there in some form or fashion, but I think that our whole team is starting to see that we have bigger opportunities. What I really see is happening is as the convention market's coming back, it's going to start pinching down to that local nonprofits, the local groups that can't book without more any further than a year. They're going to start feeling a little pinched out as those national conventions come back. So more space would be a great thing to have.
Just real quick on the IT from the board, from the district side. is there something that we need to revisit, or, because I know that we talked about it previously maybe 2 years ago, as far as like email retention and power storage and protocol, and I don't know if we ever finalized if there's any sort of protocol for IT from the board's perspective, email.
Yeah.
I remember having some of these conversations previously,
Right.
but
And I'm sure in terms of document retention, I gotta admit offhand, I'm not, I don't recall exactly what our policy is, but I mean, there are some general rules about
Yeah.
that at the state level.
We haven't followed up on holding information longer than we do currently, which is like base, and I don't know all the facts. Tony, do you?
From my understanding, at least in my experience, it's always been, you follow the tax guidelines, so a minimum of 7 years. But because we're open to public record requests, I don't know if that increases how much information we have to keep. I don't know the legal side of that.
We have a documentation retention schedule that we, when I first started, we put together in conjunction with the prior attorneys
Mhm.
that we follow.
is that Boise Center or is that district level?
It's both.
Okay.
It encompasses both funds.
That was just something that, it just, is there anything that we need to be doing at the board level for that IT,
One of the recommendations that came from the internal control review was that we bring you our policies for you guys to look at every year. And so we're working in the process of putting together a schedule outlining which policies we'll bring each month so that you don't get all the policies in 1 month. And then identifying which policies to bring. So we're in the process of going through that review as part of the internal control review.
But that's something Mike and I can start working on.
yeah,
for
and
the
that's
first
maybe just
quarter.
something that just,
And I would assume a lot of our documentation could probably be used to help whatever from the board side, because to her point, a lot of it carries over between the two.
yeah, it was just something that. I was like,
Hopefully some of
oh,
our
I don't know
efforts
if we
can
ever
help.
finished that discussion, but
I know we started with Pat Miller and, I mean, at the time, Pat was comfortable with where we were and the policies in place, but I haven't updated with Mike. We talked a little bit and then we never,
And to be
I never
honest, it'd
followed up,
be
so.
good.
And I can ask, I'm doing a board training tomorrow with Brian Kane from the AG's office, so I can ask Brian tomorrow if he's got any more current guidelines or, whatever he thinks the latest and greatest is. So
Yeah.
I'll try to ask him.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, and I know,
I'll shoot you an email back.
Great.
and I know that, with ransomware and things like that, and some people can get in through emails, and so if there's like, I know you probably have one internally for Boise Center on protocol. Or
But
how to manage.
anything from the IT side, Tony, I should let you answer that. The controls that we have for both, for any email access, regardless whether it be board or Boise Center.
I'm not sure what the question is there, though.
But what controls do we have in place for ransomware and that sort of thing?
Well, as far as for any of our cloud-based applications, a worst-case scenario, we'd lose 24 hours because everything's up in the cloud. As far as our documentation for the center, anything that's up in SharePoint, it's the same thing. It's 24 hours. It would probably take us a couple of days to get that information back up into SharePoint in the proper locations. The only thing that we're vulnerable to is what people don't save in SharePoint. It's the things that they keep on their desktops. I do it too. And we just need to bring awareness to our user base for that, which we've done in the past, but we always need to remind them of that. But ransomware is only as dangerous as your backup policy. When you see these cases where people have lost months and years of data, they don't have a solid backup policy. That's really where it comes down to.
And I guess my thing is, you probably talk about and do some training and policies internally with Boise Center, but since the board also has Boise Center email addresses, then maybe it would just be good to give us a refresher on things that we need to be aware of or should or shouldn't be doing.
I can include you in that because the first quarter of 22, I'm planning on starting to send out like monthly phishing exams per se in email, and we'll track who clicks through and who doesn't.
Oh,
And not to slap people on the wrist, but to let them know, hey, by the way, I know this looked legitimate, but here's why it isn't. Just, just as a, informational. for people.
Yeah.
So we can include you guys in that.
Yeah, I think it's just more of a, hey, the board does,
I get it.
we could be the weak link and I don't want us to be the weak
If you ever
link.
get an email from Pat asking you to go buy gift cards in the middle of the night, it's not real.
Yeah.
Or wire funds.
Yeah, I need those.
Well, I think that's a great note, and I think that's something that we can work on. I did a strategic plan meeting with IT, and we're gonna be meeting quarterly about this exact stuff and to make sure our staff is aware of what's out there.
Yeah, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get, emails for buy this list and buy that list. And since they're out, our emails are out public on the website that, we could be
Absolutely.
targeted for something.
So, Madam Chair, I'm actually, the very first part of my board training tomorrow is on this issue about board liability, and I can say from the Southern Public and the client where we're doing the training, and you all may be a little different because you have a Voice Center address, but their analysis was that they went through with their IT folks was that the board members themselves essentially, because they don't have the same access to the system that everyone else does, that there is essentially, well, they're pretty certain there's no technical risk to that entity by board members doing something. They were worried more about sort of reputational risk if you're otherwise compromised. But so that we actually just went through that this week to try to figure it out, and at least the conclusion seemed to be that that the board members were not as potentially a risky issue as people who are actually sort of in the building and on the system. But,
So
It was
from
just
no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go
From,
ahead.
from a board member perspective, you're actually more vulnerable on your desktop because where you get the ransomware
Mhm.
is on your local workstation. So, to Mike's point, it's not going to really affect the organization per se, but it could certainly impact you, or it could certainly impact the board member who's accessing their Voice Center email from a work computer, but from their place of business. So, yeah, we'll
Okay,
have to pay closer attention to
Yeah.
that.
it's just kind of like a
It's a good,
heads up.
it's definitely something that we're paying close attention to. Me and Tony talked about, we're almost more lucky than we were good at this whole process because 3 years ago, we're looking at going into the cloud for USI. Our most valuable data is living up in the cloud now. So if somebody was to give us a ransomware, they wouldn't get a lot of money from us because it wouldn't be very valuable outside of what's been done in the last 24 hours. That's pretty much it because we would get everything back prior to that. So we feel very strongly about the policy we've got in place to be able to continue our business continuity.
And if we need to do any board training or a little memo to us on what we need to be doing, best practices, just let us just do
Absolutely.
that.
Tony, maybe January, February.
Yeah.
We could do a presentation as,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Just quick little, I was into the SWOT analysis there real quick. I just wanted to kind of highlight, these aren't, again, anything that's shocking to anybody, but our team highlighted on the threat side or the weakness side, COVID, cost of living, inflation, lack of hotel inventory, labor shortage, staff burnout, lack of parking. So a lot of these things are nothing shocking to us. And the good news is as leadership, we've been paying attention to this. Pat's made some initiatives to help kind of pay for the parking on some of our part-time staff. So I felt very strong across the board that our staff knows the industry very well, knows what we're struggling against. They know our space limitations, and that's one thing that they highlighted very clearly. So it was just very interesting to hear from the levels that I did on our staff level, the awareness that they had across the board with some of the challenges we face. Then Brandon updated you guys last month, so I won't go into this too deep, but Ada County, we're working on our hazard mitigation plan, and that'll go to the board for approval the spring of 22. That's really our piece into the Ada County's hazard mitigation and how we could play as a potential facility for mass casualties, or if there was something that they just needed space to get a flood or fires or something that they needed space. So we can participate in that. There's some ability to recover funds from FEMA if your building is used in that way. So and then we're just more hiring to get ready for a busy 22. So we're excited about it. That second quarter, I'm very excited to present to the board next quarter on what that looks like because it is busy and we've got a task ahead of us getting our staff levels up to that point. So I feel strongly that we're going to get there. With that, I'll take any questions and thank you guys all for the support over the last year. Again, I can't thank you enough to have the foresight in some ways on we've had a really good year compared to what other convention centers I've talked to them weekly, if not daily sometimes, and no one that I've talked to is in the same position we are in Boise, Idaho. And that's across, there's very few markets, and the ones that are doing anything are because they're doing something from a homeless shelter or doing something from the side of more of a philanthropy or helping their community right now than they are doing events to make money. So
Cody sits on the regional team for IEVM. So he's working his way up on in leadership of IEVM, starting with the regional level. So when he talks about the communication, he is in regular communication with a lot of facilities. Oregon, Washington, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, BC, and Alberta, and Manitoba.
Manitoba as well, yeah. Just western part of Canada for the most part, but yeah. That's a 6-year commitment, so I'm in year 2 or 3 because I came in and I filled the role. So I think I'm doing 3 years with the secretary treasurer position, and I'm on my 3rd year. And then I'll move into the assistant director and then the director for the region. So I'll be the director of Region 4.
What do the initials stand for?
IAVM is International Association of Venue Managers. So it's convention centers, stadiums, performing arts venues, basically anybody that does events for a living. And it's almost all of them for the most part. There's a few, I mean, we've got members, even the Ford Idaho Center's a member, they're not super active in their going to the conferences and being educated on that stuff. I think they are now because their new hire over there as the GM was involved in IAVM at a higher level. So I think they're going to start getting more involved. The Knitting Factory is also another venue that's a member locally. Boise State as well. Yep. So Sam Dory is over at Extra Mile Arena is another contact locally that's very involved in IBM. Questions?
Where do we rank in size?
We are considered a small convention center. However, we are right on the cusp. So they consider a small convention center up to 100,000 square feet of meeting space. We're sitting at 89. You could get us to 100 if you take some of our lobby spaces and our extra stuff. But that's where the medium starts, is at anything over 100,000. So we're considered small. Barely. We're the big of the small. Thank you, board. Appreciate again all the support over the last year. Happy holidays, guys. Sorry, I took too much time on you.
We're gonna get a fishing pole.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'll take just a few minutes. Most of mine is kind of a recap, so you're already familiar with it from our last meeting as well. In our annual marketing plan, we list all of the highlights of the things that we've accomplished in the past year. And so I went through it. I might refer to this handout here in front of you. And for those of you that are online, I'll make sure Pam sends out a copy. But I just highlighted a few of the things that were successful from the marketing department, everything from receiving that Smart Stars Award to our Boise Center is Open campaign. We really kind of felt like we did a lot of new things to help stimulate interest and awareness of Boise Center. So I won't read it to you. I'll just let you kind of peruse that list, but there's like a few visual examples of our Now campaign. That's the 2nd edition of the Creative. The 1st edition was Open, Boise Center is Open, and now meetings and events happening now was our kind of our opening headline. Through the sales department, we introduced Welcome to the Neighborhood campaign that really helped us envelop the Idaho Central Arena in that messaging, letting them know that we have more space if they're looking for that space. We're on track. We're already opening up the marketing plan and implementing it. We're placing our advertising. We have upcoming ads in several national publications. Mary Michael is helpful on the advertorial side of things, so we get to tell our story along with showing pretty pictures. The new magazine that we're working with is Associations and Conventions. New audience there to hopefully tap into some more association awareness to bring some more groups to Idaho. Our big projects, we did mention in our last work session that we have coming up this year, and based on budget, that's why we kind of put them off. But we're doing several new videos for the facility, just to update videos on the website. HR, we're helping them do a recruiting video. So when all the staffing that Cody talked about, that we're helping to kind of inspire people to want to work here and to know that we really do want first-class talent here, and that promoting first-class events. We have a promotional video for the sales team that we'll be doing, and also a new video or series of videos for the main lobby on the big curved video wall. It's just time for a refresh there. We are developing new creative with Drake Cooper, and so it's not available yet. So I'll be sharing that in the next work session, and look forward to bringing some of that out. And just like say, changing it up enough so that people don't just flip the page because they've seen it before. So we just want to refresh on a couple of those things. Internal events, we have Butte and Boise coming up, so we'll be working on that. But what I put on the back here, this is the highlight, just a kind of a collage of the different projects we've worked on throughout the year. Just showing that we touch a variety of departments. We're not just placing ads. We do help other departments with their creative projects, everything from audit covers to holiday parties and the wedding party show. The one on the bottom, kind of the bottom left-hand corner, Kay was going to a trade show. Kay Dillon was going to a trade show, and she wanted some very specific messaging for the audience that she was working with. So we worked with her and came up with some very clever things. So we really do try to personalize and customize the projects that we're working on. So we do touch every department and help with a variety of projects, and we're happy to do so. I mean, as a service department, Mary Michael and I, roll up our sleeves and work with our agency partners and try to make everyone successful and once again keep that Boise Center brand top of mind and just really keep it consistent and professional and something that we're very proud of. So even the logistics committee, we like on your mark, get set, wow was the theme of our annual staff meeting this year, and we had some Olympic fun with that theme. And so we're involved in lots of creative projects. So I'll let Mary Michael take some time and share with you some of the numbers and some of the results of the projects that we wrap our arms around.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nice to be here with you. I'm going to move pretty quickly this afternoon. I want to make sure you have time for Allie's report too for sales. I was asked to give you a recap of our communications PR efforts, and I have website at the end. So I'll click through this year. In 2021, I wrote and distributed 4 news releases. What you see in front of you are examples of the 7 local media editorial articles that were either about Boise Center, about the district, and also about COVID recovery and room tax. So this is a sampling. We had really good coverage of hotel room tax in the past year. It's been a big area of interest for local media as well as hotel occupancy. There were articles about downtown, and is downtown going to be able to come back after COVID? And that was done early in last year. Pat was interviewed for that, members of Downtown Boise Association. And on the far, my right, your left, that you see Fall for Idaho Tourism campaign. This was done by Betsy Russell for the Idaho Press about a month, 6 weeks ago, and was a very good article about the robust lodging room tax revenues throughout the state and how the state's shutdown or critical crisis standards of care really affected marketing efforts. To show you that. And this is national industry meetings, industry coverage. Has some successful coverage this year. The GBAC news release, or the not Greater Boise Auditorium Center, but Greater, what am I thinking? Global Biorisk, what is Airborne?
Advisory Council.
Thank you, Advisory Council. I can't get my acronyms off my tongue this afternoon. We secured some fantastic coverage in MNC Magazine and Meeting News newsletter. We were early in the year with our news release about that, and that newsletter went to 5,000 people. On the far right, you see more GBAC coverage in USAE, which is a leading association publication. In the middle is a Meetings Today 2-page spread article about Boise and about Idaho and the thriving tourism meetings market, and Pat was interviewed and featured in that article. There's others, but that's just the highlights from this year. And then other PR and promotional things that we've done throughout the year. Boise Center in January, part of our paid media campaigns that we did this year were boosted social media posts, and that's where you pay monies to promote your social media post to get it to a larger audience of people that are more likely to buy your product. And on your left, you'll see there's a Boise Center image and GBAC Star accreditation logo that was promoting the GBAC Star facility accreditation that we earned. And then right below that is Vote Now, Smart Stars. And we ran a successful campaign encouraging our followers on LinkedIn and Facebook to vote for Boise Center for Best Conference Center. We actually were successful and we won that placement for the 3rd year in a row of Best Conference Center. So that award has, the logo is added on the homepage of Boise Center's website as well. And then on the far right, I wrote 2 blog posts this year for Boise Center. The first was to promote Boise Center achieves the GBAC Star Facility Accreditation. The second was elevate your virtual and hybrid events with Boise Center. And you might remember from a previous meeting this year, myself, Chris Morrison, and Dan Hill from our audiovisual put together a neat 2-minute promotional video to highlight Boise Center's virtual and hybrid event capabilities, and it features footage from 4 different virtual events and testimonials from those events. We used this at a virtual, this was late spring, so last year when things were pretty heightened in the virtual, we weren't doing as much in person at that point. And we used that video for business after hours promo for Boise Center, shared it out on social media. It's been added to our website and has helped quite a bit in promoting our hybrid and virtual services. And then getting to some successful and good news as we move towards the end of this year. Boise Center's website is one of our most robust marketing opportunities and marketing places where we welcome potential clients, potential customers, people who may be thinking about planning conferences, conventions, weddings, events, maybe people that have already booked their events and they're looking for resources on menus or audiovisual guides and so forth. This year, I can happily tell you our website traffic, so the amount of people that came to our site to read through the site, traffic sessions, you think of a session as a book, and when you sit down to read that book, so sessions, we had 75,033 website sessions. That's almost a 40% jump over last year. And we know last year in 2020, we were closed for about 3 months, 90 days that time. We weren't advertising digitally during that time. So when I saw this number, I felt relief and then also happy because I think a lot of our efforts for advertising and marketing this year have paid off and have driven people to this site. You'll see it in the next slide after this as well. Our pages, or the amount of pages that they're reading when they're sitting down to read that book and look at our website, is 1.48, slightly down from where it was in 19. The duration is slightly down. Our bounce rate, which means people are coming to the site maybe thinking, oh, this isn't what I wanted. I wanted Boise City Hall, or this is too much for me to read right now. I'm gonna opt out. Our rate is 2% higher than it was the previous year, and that's pretty nominal. A bounce rate at 75% is better than we have been, better than we were 3 years ago, and better than we were 4 years ago. So I'm not as concerned with where it is right now. Our top sources of traffic, how are people finding out about us? Where do they find our book on the shelf? Our paid advertising, 43% of the sessions or the people that come to that site is from advertising. Paid digital display, paid social media advertising, paid search, things that we're doing paid social media. Organic search is the second largest, and organic search is made up of people that search for convention centers in the Northwest, meeting centers in the Western US. It could be made up partly by keywords on our site, partly by our search engine marketing that we do, our paid search. There's multiple factors that go into that organic search, but we pay to buy keywords and we pay to buy a ranking that's higher. So if you're searching for convention centers, conference centers in the West, that's where that's coming from. Whoops, and my last slide, I have one more slide. Oops, sorry. I didn't put this here. Some statistics I wanted to share for you before we wrap up. Our website typically ranks in the top 4 of the sales and event lead generators for the year. People coming to this site, finding it through advertising. In 2021, we received 183 lead inquiries, so lead forms submitted through the website. That is just 4 shy of the number in 2019, to give you a comparison. So we finished the year at 183. Our Boise Center is Open Ad Campaign, which was our local awareness. It has a special page where people can go there and read FAQs about COVID and our cleaning and all that good stuff. We received 29 leads, 29 inquiries directly through that ad campaign. We have booked or secured 39 events through these lead forms in the past year. There's one still pending, one tentative, and one verbal definite. So when I go to look at the proof and the pudding, or when we go as a marketing department, say, are the tools that we're using, the tools that we're deploying, are we working, are we making a difference? And I think Ally, Stacy, myself, and Cliff in the past year, we've done more local advertising, more regional advertising. We restarted our national campaigns in May, but what we're really seeing the business generated from the conversions and the leads is in the Northwest and in the West. So we are taking the knowledge that we have learned from this past year and also data from our site, and we're shaping our ad campaigns and where we're bulking up monies and spend throughout the year in 2022. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry that was so fast.
Just is that 38 seconds for session duration?
Right, so 38 seconds. So they're going through in those sessions almost 1.48 pages in a session, and then 38 seconds per session. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Ally, just something that I thought about with theirs, but I wanted, you probably have the questions for the neighborhood, welcome to the neighborhood, campaign, and including the arena. Have you been successful in getting any leads and or bookings with that?
We have a couple potential right now using that package. Daughters of the Nile for 2024 is one that would bring in several thousand attendees. They would use their arena for their evening. It's very ceremonial. And so the plan is for them to use the arena for sort of like their procession kind of presentation stuff, and then the convention center for other sessions and a lot of food and beverage. So yeah, it's we've seen a little bit of success with it, hopefully more in the future.
Okay.
What is that, Madam Chair?
Oh, just the, welcome to the neighborhood, about including the space over at the arena and basically doing some co-selling, I guess is the best way to describe it, between saying, we have the capability of accessing more square footage by using the arena and selling it kind of all together.
Thank you.
One more. There we go. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thanks for the time and having me back this afternoon. It's always nice to go through the quarter with you all and see where we're moving ahead. So I'm just going to dive right in the interest of time. We're going to be taking a look at our 2021 performance and what we have ahead for 2022. These are the items that we'll be going through. Taking a look at our sales team, reviewing our 2021 event actuals in terms of number of events, attendance, room nights, and economic impact. Our key performance indicators, where the team measured up against our goals that we set for 2021. Updates on the convention marketing campaign and our partnership with the CVB and Orange 142. And then finally, how we're looking in 2022, which Cody kind of already painted a nice picture there. So we'll be just elaborating on that a little bit. So the sales team, most of you, I believe, have met our entire sales team here. We've got 3 sales managers, Lori Brown, who combined service with the CVB and Boise Center's 28 years, Linda Alexander with Boise Center for 12 years, Kay Dillon with the Convention Center for 7 years, and our newest addition, Jennifer McMaster, who you probably have not had the opportunity to meet, is our contract administrator. She's overseeing all of the event contracts for the convention center, so for the sales team and the event managers. And she started in October.
So one point of contact for all contracts.
Yes, all contracts and all contract deliverables. So insurance, deposits, it's really, I think, created some efficiencies. Just one person overseeing that. And efficiencies is the perfect word. She's probably one of the most efficient people I have worked with, and she's just caught on so quickly. She's a really great addition to the team, which is why I have her among our 2021 highlights. Of course, our newest team member to sales, Jennifer McMaster. Again, she works across departments with the sales team, events team, and also with finance, and Anne Marie, some of her team members as well. I pulled just a few of the notable events, since the board has heard about a couple of these that we hosted in 2021. Northwest Credit Union Association, MAX, that brought in about 1,000 room nights, almost 1,100 room nights into Boise. Western Power Sports was another one of our top room night generators with almost 800 room nights, and they were here in the summer. And Wintry Market was a new event for Boise Center. It is not a convention, it's a consumer show, but what was great about this one is they outgrew Jump, where this had been hosted the last few years. It's around the holidays, it was hosted in November, and it brought in about 5,000 people. And since we had lost Festival of Trees this year, that was kind of a nice filler for attendance, and they'll be returning next year as well. And again, some of the top contracts that we confirmed in 2021 for future business: Botanical Society of America, Industrial Asset Management Council, and American Astronomical Society. And those are all nice citywides for future years. Here's a recap of our 2021 event actuals. So Boise Center hosted 167 events in FY21. Our targets here, these were part of our sales and marketing plan, our 2021 sales and marketing plan. You know, we had planned to be conservative, and unfortunately with the cancellation of some events due to COVID, especially early in the year and into the spring, you see that we didn't meet our targets for attendance, which also impacted our economic impact. Room nights performed.
Hey, Ellie,
Yes,
just real quick, on attendance, Festival of Trees alone is 35,000.
correct. Yeah, so that's a big hit there for attendance. And that's, you know, the attendance in addition to room nights plays a role in our economic impact. So that's where, you know, we see kind of the lower figure there. Conventions held somewhat steady. They actually landed about where we had hoped or expected at 41 conventions and 126 local events for the year. The key performance indicators, these are set forth for the sales team. And basically these are measurements that we use to evaluate the success of the team and the activities that we do throughout the year. We surpassed all KPIs for 2021. I'm pleased to report the team worked really hard. We recorded 270 leads, sent out 146 proposals. We hosted 115 site visits. Now, this is kind of an asterisk here. We intentionally planned a higher goal at 65 because we knew we were going to be doing some virtual site visits and FAMs, which we did in April. So of the 115, close to 50 were actually virtual sites visitors. We confirmed 72 convention contracts and attended 20 trade shows and conferences. Transitioning into Orange 142, again, with the support of the district, we've partnered with the CVB and a creative marketing agency since COVID to basically maintain a presence in the market. We initially worked with Digital Edge and then transitioned over to Orange 142 this summer. And they've just been a really great partnership. They're huge on reporting and performance metrics, which we love, and they've really just given us some good guidance and developed a lot of great content and creative for us. The CVB has renewed a contract, so we'll continue to work with them through 2022. And this is going to be a shared partnership now between the district support, the CVB, and also some funds from their grant. And this is just more as a refresh. We have talked at length about some of how Orange 142 structures the campaign. We've got messaging pillars, and that's just really ensures that our content is consistent. We basically frame around three different concepts, whether it's this transformation, you can see is more about educating the audience, progress, which is about capitalizing on that social currency and the buzz that Boise has right now. And then this personal idea, essentially Boise's and Boise Center is a really great opportunity for the small and mid-sized conventions to come in and really own the city as opposed to getting lost in a big downtown or convention market. Target markets, again, our main focus is Idaho, Pacific Northwest, and West. We still have scaled back DC. They get our email marketing, but in terms of digital, we're not doing much in DC just yet. Plan to do that in 2022. The latest convention marketing results, and these numbers could actually be updated as of today. Impressions as of today are 8.2 million. Total clicks about 76,000. And then we've broken down the click-through rate based on the type of marketing. Native, which is ads that sort of mimic the look and feel of the media where they show up. So if it's like a newspaper website, it might look more of like an editorial type ad is what native is. Email, we performed really well in our email marketing. You can see a solid click-through rate there. And then again, innate and digital. Some of the small type here is just basically says that we are scaling back some of our impressions and our marketing through the holidays, just while people are busy with vacation or out of the office, picking it up again, kind of in early to mid-January. Some of the new initiatives that we'll be rolling out for 2022 with Digital Edge is, I keep saying Digital Edge, it's Orange 142. We have 5 opportunities to do some geofencing, and what that is kind of creates this net around a market, and we're going to align that with travel that we have scheduled for 2022, and so push out some direct marketing while we're in a city or at a trade show to people that are actually attending. Also, we've got some social retargeting opportunities. This is something that they've seen perform really well. What that is if a person clicks on an ad earlier in the day, that night they'd be served up another ad in their social channel, like whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, they'll see Boise pop up again. This is just breaking down the performance of one of our latest email. You can see our open rate is over 57%, and a good open rate is typically around that 12 to 25% range. And so email is just really solid for us. We do subject line testing before we deploy out the bulk of the email audience. This past email just went to about 76,000 people. And this detailed slide here just shows you where the engagement is from the recipient. So most of the engagement and clicks are at the top of the email as expected, and then it kind of dwindles as you scroll down. So transitioning into our 2022 outlook, we are seeing COVID concerns waning, which is great. We're seeing that among our own clients and also just kind of in industry chatter in general. The chart here compares our 2022 estimates based on tentative and definite events to our 2019 actuals. And this is something that just will continue to evolve. You've seen this over the course of the last year, comparing our 21 to 2019. We are behind in terms of room nights and economic impacts still in Q1. However, once we hit the spring and Q2, we just skyrocket past our 2019 actuals. July alone has about 3,200 room nights that we're estimating. And I think once those actualize, it could be our highest actual room night generating Julys. And then you can see our estimates for the year. We're at 27,000 room nights and about 25.8 million in economic impact currently. Some of the new initiatives here that I wanted the board to be aware of that we're working on with the CVB is a Helms-Briscoe FAM. And this is pretty much confirmed for April of 2022. This would bring in about 20 Helms-Briscoe representatives and then end users into Boise. It's essentially going to replace the FAM that would usually be hosted in July for about the same number of people. in the Summer Fams place, we are planning on a customer advisory board. So the first time that we'd be bringing in a board of about 5 to 6 clients. We're identifying who those target accounts would be. One of the individuals involved would probably be someone local, an established client that has some of that knowledge, institutional knowledge about the center and about the destination. And this will be essentially a fan, but also an opportunity to get some feedback from them about our products and services and maybe areas of improvement or opportunities that we just might not be aware of. Finally, a hosted industry event. We are still pursuing an opportunity. We were not selected for Conference Direct CDX for August of 2022. However, we've got another great opportunity. This is a marketplace that we've attended in the past. We are putting a bid in for September 2022. It's Connect West. It would bring in about 50 planners and 50 suppliers. So really similar in size to CDX, but with a actually smaller price tag, which is kind of nice.
And July is typically low, so what's coming in July that's bumping up room nights?
We're booked solid with conventions in July. Yeah, we've got Council of State Governments coming in, Albertsons Floral Show, Brethren Denominational Conference coming in. So it's a really solidly booked July. Our 2022 KPIs here, we developed these when we were like right in the middle of Delta. And so we were a bit conservative. You can see kind of where we landed at the end of the year in 2021 versus our goals that we put forth in 2022. So of course the team's going to, put all their efforts into surpassing these as usual. We certainly don't stop at our goal ceiling there. So 2022 travel, we've actually already been on the road this month. Linda Alexander returned from Chicago just yesterday, attending Holiday Showcase with her CVB counterpart, Rhonda McCarville. And then Cliff, Kay Dillon, and I, along with Carrie Westergaard at CVB, will be heading out to PCMA to attend Convening Leaders next month. This I pulled from a recent survey that was published by North Star Meetings Group, a pulse survey. They've done these regularly throughout the pandemic, showing some really great trends in just planner confidence. This here is showing that booking activity is at new highs while rebooking activity is at new lows. So if an event's canceled, it's already rebooked, or cancellations have just stopped, and planners are really focused on sourcing and booking new events right now. The majority of those respondents are professional conference planners for mostly associations or nonprofits, and their meeting size is about 100 to 500 people, which is kind of a sweet spot for Boise Center. So really encouraging results there. Some of the rest of the survey focused on Omicron and the impact it's had, and really based on the people that responded, they're seeing it as more of a blip, which is kind of encouraging, hopefully an indicator of what's to come for future variants. I think it's just something that people are learning to live with and know that they need to get back to meeting and want to get back to meeting. And really just kind of wrapping everything up in summary, Boise Center continues to be really well positioned to succeed. Not only from the buzz around Boise, the size of our city is really attractive. We're a great size for the small to mid-sized convention. We've really maintained engagement in the market, which I think is huge. While teams were dismantled and really just scaled back, we stayed out there and we were maintaining communication with our clients. We've got a really great foundation of clients. So our 22 events on the books, currently 64% of those are repeat events. If we look at just conventions alone, 50% of conventions in 2022 are repeat events. So that's really helped us, especially as we took a hit during COVID. We have all these repeats that just we know are going to be here. They're kind of our bread and butter. Again, exciting opportunities for 2022, some of the new initiatives that we'll be rolling out. And we've got a really strong team in place and we've talked about it before, the district support and keeping the team on board has just been huge, especially as we come back and while others are dealing with staffing, we've got a very seasoned team across all departments in place to carry out our goals. So with that, thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ally, sales team? Let's see, this is,
Yes, convention summary stats in front of you. Really no major shifts from the last report. COVID is still our top reason for lost business. Market segments and industries have really been pretty consistent. We see really strong performance, of course, out of Idaho, the West, some nice events out of Washington coming here, and those are made up of regional conferences for corporate groups and association groups. Yeah, really no major shifts to report on these stats.
any questions? Okay, thanks, Ally. Thank you. Yeah.
Just roll into the.
I was gonna hang out my coat and grab a couple of strawberries.
Let's do that. Let's take a quick 5 minutes.